want to start by saying that this isn't the first bad experience I've had dog sitting, but it's definitely the worst. So I started dog sitting back when I was around 13 or so, and I made good money doing it. I'm currently 19, and this happened when I was 18. I set up an easy way for people to contact me about dog sitting. I would put out posts on Facebook and Instagram about it often, and I would get people on my messages asking to dog sit. One day I got a notification from Instagram stating someone was trying to message me. I accepted it, and the message said that me and my wife are looking to find a dog sitter while we go away for a week to Florida. You will have to work from the 4th to the 11th this month. We will pay you $300 for the week, and you're welcome to stay at our house or go back to your own home. I started talking back and forth with this man, and we're going to call him Mr. Brown for the sake of privacy. So I agreed to take the gig, and I told him I would stay at his house for the week. Once I got to his house, I was introduced to his two dogs, Mina and Letty. Mina was a little Yorkie, and Letty was a blue hound. I was shown around his house, which was surrounded by 76 acres. I live in a farm town and live on 32 acres myself, so staying here didn't really freak me out. The closest neighbors were pretty far away, and you would actually have to drive there if you wanted to talk to them. They told me the rules and when to feed them and all that. Then Miss Brown told me about their nearest neighbor. In her words, she was a nice person, just a little bit drugged up and confused. She mentioned how sometimes she would pull into their driveway instead of hers, and would sometimes mistake Miss Brown for her dead daughter. Hearing this made me feel pretty bad for her, and I know all too well how hard it is for parents to lose their child, because of how my parents were after losing my brother in a car accident. Miss Brown said she shouldn't do anything bad though, and that if she came up to the house, to just point her back home and that she should leave with no problems. After they left, I was down to watch movies and just chill with the dogs. The first 2 days were fine with no hiccups. The third day, however, the old woman, who I'll call Miss Rose, did pull into the driveway. I came outside as she was getting out of the car, and she looked up to see me immediately, and then she got back in her car and left. I chalked it up to her realizing it was the wrong house when she saw me and went back inside. Later that night though, I got a call from Miss Brown asking if I was okay. I said yes and asked why. She then went on to tell me about how she got a call from Miss Rose and that she said there was a robber at their house. I explained what happened, and she just laughed and said that she must have been confused and forgot that they were out of town. I ended the phone call, making a note to go over there tomorrow to clear the air about me being a robber. Once I went to bed that night though, things got crazy. I woke up around 2 a.m. hearing a light scratching sound that almost sounded like ticking coming from outside the window. At first I thought it might have been a bird or some sort of creature, and I left it alone. But as the noise kept me from falling back asleep, I wanted to scare it away, so I got up and went to open the blinds, but I screamed when I lifted the blinds at the sight of Miss Rose trying to pry the window open with a pair of pliers. Once I was spotted through the window, she started banging on it with the pliers. The dogs started going crazy, and I quickly got up. I told the dogs to follow me. I then grabbed my phone and ran to a room with no windows, which was the bathroom. I called 911 and explained the situation, quickly giving them the address from what I could remember. She said that the police would be there in about 10 minutes, which, for the area I was in, was pretty good, considering the house is in a pretty rural area. I had gotten the dogs to be quiet and put them in the closet, connected to the bathroom, to make sure she didn't hear them. I was trying to stay calm, and I could still hear the pounding on the window. As I continued to talk to the operator, I heard glass shatter. I cursed under my breath, trying not to cry. I was really scared at this point and pretty much ready to cry from the fear of being beaten to death by someone who was clearly not in the right state of mind. I was whispering what was happening to the operator, hiding in the back of the bathroom in the tub. After about 4 minutes of pretty much silence, I heard footsteps and I could see feet under the other side of the door, and I cursed to myself again. I then see Miss Rose get on her hands, looking under the crack, and I mistakenly let out a gasp. She gets up quickly, pounding at the door. I can tell she's still using the pliers. I am at this point crying, asking the operator where the police are, to which she responds, 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes felt like longer than forever. I screamed at Miss Rose to please go away, and she screamed back that I shouldn't be here. Once I heard the sound of police cars, and about a minute later, them trying to kick down the door though, I felt a lot better. I was told to stay on the line till the intruder was caught, and that police were trying to get into the house. Eventually they did get into the house, and I yelled to get their attention, as if they even needed it, because the lady was still banging on the door. Once they got into the room, she was told to drop her weapon, and she actually obeyed, saying that she didn't do anything wrong. They got her in handcuffs, and a police officer told me it was okay to unlock the door, to which I slowly got up and did so. After being taken to the police station and giving them my story for the report, I went to my parents' house. I was just too scared to be alone. The next day, I called Miss Brown and explained the situation. I even got full payment after telling them I wasn't going back to the house. They called me a few days later, saying that Miss Rose was under the influence of hard drugs, and, in her words, she told the police that she decided to take care of the robber, me, herself, and that she did nothing wrong. She was charged with breaking and entering, which is kind of ironic. After that, I quit dog sitting, and I'm a lot more paranoid nowadays, and always make sure my doors and windows are locked. This happened to my sister about 15 years ago when she was in high school and I was in middle school. Our mom worked as a house cleaner and always became good friends with everyone whose home she cleaned. One of the homes was owned by an older couple who had no kids but had a huge house and a really nice pool that they always invited me and my siblings to come swim in. The husband worked as the CEO of a large airline company, and they lived in a really nice neighborhood on a large lot with a forest of trees. When you were in their backyard, you couldn't see any other houses at all, just trees. It felt really secluded and almost spa-like with a waterfall and a short iron fence, so you had good views of the forest. Their house was really interesting, with multiple levels made from walls of stone, even on the inside. Pretty much every room had huge floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the backyard and gave great views during the day. At night, however, the reflection from the inside lights prevented you from seeing out, so it was always a little unnerving to walk by them since you couldn't see what was out there. The couple also decorated with old Native American art and masks, which was a little creepy to a middle schooler, but the couple wasn't creepy, so I never got too scared. They had an old golden retriever dog named Samson that lived up to his name and was massive, but had a sweet and gentle temperament. On the other hand, they also had recently rescued a husky mix named Sadie, who was quite the opposite. Psycho Sadie, as we lovingly called her, had intense separation and stranger anxiety. She would destroy their house when they were left inside, jump their short fence if they left her outside, and if they took her with them to run errands, she would destroy their car and howl non-stop until they returned. So since they were wealthy and had the extra money, they would pay for me or my sister to come over and dog sit while they went out. We got paid $20 an hour, so we were always excited to go over there and watch their cable and swim in their awesome pool. Normally everything would be fine and both dogs would just lay around, but occasionally Sadie would realize I was a stranger and go nuts and just start barking at me. One time she backed me into a corner and would not stop barking, and I literally watched her eyes turn red. I was convinced she was going to attack me, but she eventually calmed down after I got up on a couch and showed her how big not I was. But I digress. This particular incident happened over Easter weekend while the homeowners were out of town for 2 days. They were paying my sister to stay there over the weekend, and I stayed her with her the first night because it was a big house and kind of scary to stay there all alone. And we stayed up late watching chick flicks and eating junk. The next day we swam in their pool and hung out, but for some reason I didn't spend the night again, and I'm so glad I didn't because what happened that night scarred my sister for life. It all started when my sister was working out on their treadmill. Their workout room was on the bottom floor of their home, which was a walkout basement. Just outside the room was a huge sliding glass door that opened to their patio and pool. She had the TV on in their workout room, watching the 10 Commandments that is always on the night before Easter. As she was running, she thought she heard the house alarm beep like it did whenever a door was opened. She stopped the treadmill and went to look around and saw that the sliding glass door was open. Now this door is huge and there's absolutely no way it could have opened by itself, so she was instantly freaked. However, the dogs were just laying there in the workout room and she figured they would have gotten up to investigate if someone had come inside, since they have those kinds of instincts, and because Sadie was so schizo and hated strangers. So she was able to make the excuse that she had accidentally left the door open and that she must have imagined the beep of the alarm and it could have been the TV or the treadmill. She closed and locked the door and went back to working out, but a couple minutes later, she had the distinct feeling of someone watching her. She looked around but didn't see anyone and finished her workout, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. so she decided to just go to bed because she was a little creeped out and just wanted to forget about it. It was at this point that my sister went around and made sure all the doors were locked. The owners didn't give her the alarm code, so she couldn't set it. She took a shower and locked herself in the guest room with both dogs, just in case, and eventually fell asleep. A couple of hours later, she awoke to both dogs growling at the door of the room. Now, it was fairly normal for Psycho Sadie to growl and bark for no reason, but Samson had never barked or shown any signs of aggressiveness at all, so immediately, my sister knew something was up. She was shaking and trying to convince herself that the dogs had just heard an animal and that it was nothing. But then she heard that dreadful door alarm beep. She called my dad in a panic, crying and screaming, and he told her to hang up and call the police while he was on his way over. She called the cops, and my dad made the 15-minute drive in under 5 minutes. When she opened the door to try to let my dad in the house, the dogs took off running and barking through the whole house and downstairs to the basement. My dad took a quick look around the upstairs level with his gun, but didn't see anything unusual. The police arrived a few minutes later and looked around and found that the back gate was open as well as the sliding glass door again, but not enough to let the dogs out. Just barely, like it had been slammed shut and bounced back open a little. They said it did look like someone had entered the home through the sliding glass door because the lock was tampered with, but they determined that whoever it was hadn't stolen or disturbed anything. When my dad asked why someone would break in and not do anything, especially with the dogs being locked up, the police said that they had been notified by the homeowners earlier that month that the husband had received a death threat because of some decision he made at his job that put a lot of people out of work. They had gone to the police about it, but didn't bother to tell my sister to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. Thanks a lot for the heads up, by the way. Needless to say, we never dog sat for them again, and they moved out of state within a few months because he lost his job, and to me, he deserved it. So this happened about a year ago. I like to dog sit for my coworkers in the hospital for extra cash. One of the nurses wanted me to dog sit for her while her and her family went out of town. I had done this many times, so I had no problem being alone with the dog. She lived in a very nice area of town, so bad things weren't likely to happen, or at least I thought. She told me that her husband was a police officer for the city that they lived in, but his guns would be locked away. She also went on to tell me that they have a security system that will record anything and everything by all of the doors. She gave me the lock information if it was needed, but I insisted that I would be fine. Fast forward to me dog sitting. The first couple nights were fairly normal. It was a big house, so it was a little creepy, but nothing I haven't dealt with before. One night, me and my boyfriend at the time were watching TV in the living room. The blinds were open to the backyard. It was most likely around midnight since me and him both worked night schedules, and we saw a light flash through the yard. But it wasn't a car passing by because it angled down to the grass. The dog was in the kennel since he was a pup and needed to be in for sleep, so the dog wouldn't have been able to go and find someone. Well, we both noticed it, so we decided to go outside and check it out, but no one was there. Absolutely nothing or no one. So naturally, we went to bed because now it was getting to be late. While laying in the bedroom upstairs talking, we heard a door shut from downstairs. I immediately shushed my boyfriend at the time and said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, but I don't know what it was." He then gets up to lock the bedroom door and turn off the lights. And then he whispers to me, he says, "Be quiet and listen." We sat in the dark room shaking, and we heard yet another door shut downstairs. He tells me, "Call the cops," as he grabbed a lamp at the bedside and stands by the door. As I was on the phone with the operator, she tries to calm me down, telling me that officers were on their way to the scene. Then we heard footsteps of our invader coming upstairs to where we were at. I started to cry quietly, telling the lady on the phone that the person was upstairs with us now. At this point, we heard a knock at the door and footsteps going back down the stairs. I was crying and telling the lady that there was a knock on the door. She reassured me that it was the cops, but I had to come downstairs to let them in. I told her, "You're insane. A person is in this house and you want me to go downstairs." She tells me that it is protocol to let them in to search, though. So, me and my boyfriend ran down the stairs as fast as we could to open the door, lamp still in hand. We opened the door for the cops and told them that there is someone here and what we heard. They walk into the house telling us to wait outside while they investigate. One officer goes straight outside to the back as he yells out into the dark, "If anyone is out here, make yourself known." Me and my boyfriend heard rustling through the bushes near us. The officers didn't find anyone in the home, but we know there was. We knew what we heard. Fast forward to a couple months later, we were watching a movie about an invasion. I believe it was Open House on Netflix. And we got to talking about our experience again together. Come to find that the same day of the invasion, I believe I met the intruder. I remembered I was outside around morning time getting ready to get in my car when a young man walking by asked me if the car in their driveway was for sale. I said, "I'm not sure. I'm only dog sitting for them, but they should be back in a few days." He thanked me kindly for telling me and walked off. I looked at the car next to mine in the driveway and it didn't have a for sale sign anywhere. I had no idea at the time what I had done, but I know that the man walking by was our invader. I'm still afraid to dog sit again.